minutes.
Yeah,
All
I feel
right.
bad for all that.
Shall we go, friends?
John's in there, okay. Hi, John.
So far.
Yeah.
Ready to rock and roll, friends? Chris, you good?
And you're an architect, right? Okay. And what, do you do like commercial buildings?
That was fun. That's what I meant. That's why we're back in person.
So this is right
All
up
right.
your alley.
Yes.
And just as a quick reminder for members of the board professionals, any applicants coming to speak, this meeting is being recorded for Hometown Television, for YouTube. It is particularly important you speak directly and clearly into the microphones so the audio is captured. Hometown TV has asked us to remind everyone about that. Good evening and welcome to the September 8th, 2021 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I am the chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and Hometown Television, though please note that individuals wishing to provide testimony must participate in person. In close consultation with the city clerk's office, as well as careful consideration of relevant CDC and New Jersey DOH guidance, the following precautions have been adopted to protect board members, professionals, including city staff, applicants, members of the interested public, and others in consideration of ongoing public health concerns. First, all meeting attendees are required to wear face masks regardless of vaccination status, unless speaking as part of the formal proceedings. Social distancing is encouraged wherever practical. Face masks and hand sanitizers are available for all attendees to use at the meeting room entrance. Regular and rigorous cleaning of the facilities has been conducted by city staff. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter. Chris is your man if you need that help. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with applicants on preparing their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. We'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Chairman Spur.
Here?
Vice Chairwoman Newell.
Here.
Mr. Yuko is excused. Mr. Steiner.
Here.
Mr. Mullen.
Here.
Ms. Schwartzstein.
Here.
Mr. Millay.
Here.
Mr. Loikitz.
Here.
Ms. Toth.
Here.
Ms. Sager.
Here.
Dr. Levine.
Here.
You have a quorum. You can proceed.
All right. We generally hear the cases in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed, and we then enter into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your case to another date and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city's zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer, submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. When I call your name, please come to the podium, tell me how many witnesses you have and whether you think you can complete the case in 30 minutes. First is 5 Laurel Avenue, Allison Cocchiaro. Good evening.
Hi there.
With you tonight, I see your husband.
Yep, my
And-
husband Adam Goldberg, and this is my architect
Your
Cindy.
architect, cool.
Yeah.
You expect to complete, maybe a good question for your architect in 30 minutes tonight?
We do.
Excellent, all right. So stand ready, we'll hear you first if you want to grab a seat in the front row, and we'll just go from there. Second on the agenda this evening will be Barbara and Thomas Walden, 68 Valley View Avenue. I believe they were to be represented by their son, was this the case?
Correct.
Yes, are you the son?
Yeah.
Excellent. Your name?
Thomas Walden,
Thomas Walden. Hello, Thomas. Thomas Walden, the junior or the third?
the fourth.
The fourth, all right, well done. Do you have an attorney or any professionals with you
I
this
brought
evening?
my architect, Bill Kaufman, with me.
Okay, all right. You'll be second to be heard. You think 30 minutes is about right?
Plenty of time.
Excellent, that's what we want to hear. All right, third, Elizabeth Haynes, 16 Dunder Drive. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Do you have anyone with you this evening?
Nope, Tom said I could do this all by myself.
Okay, God bless Tom. All right, cool, all right. Grab a seat, we'll
Okay,
get to
thank
you third. And then fourth this evening, Bradley and Roseanne Wilson. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Nicole Madziak of the law firm Day Pitney here this evening on behalf of the applicants.
Okay.
We have 2 direct witnesses this evening, our engineer and our landscape architect, though the applicants are here in the event that there are questions of them that we can't otherwise answer, and we do believe that we can complete our case in 30 minutes or less.
Excellent, right answer. Okay, grab a seat.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much. All right, first up, 5 Laurel Avenue. So we'll just ask you, we're going to swear you in first, and then we'll ask you to provide just a brief introduction to your application.
All right, and one at a time, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony, or both of you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And now, one at a time, please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Allison Cocchiaro. Last name is Cocchiaro.
My name is Adam Goldberg, Goldberg.
All right, thank you. Tell us a little bit about your...
Let's start with the applicants. Yep. So if you could just tell us a bit about your case, and then we'll let Cindy do all the heavy lifting for you.
Sure. My name is Allison Cocchiaro, and my husband Adam and I live at 5 Laurel Avenue along with our 3 young daughters. Adam works in New York City, and I am a stay-at-home mom to our 3 girls, ages 5, 4, and almost 3 months. We bought 5 Laurel Avenue in July of 2017. We fell in love with this home because of its location. Having 2 young daughters at the time, we loved that we were within walking distance to many playgrounds and the town itself. We also recognized how wonderful it was to be within walking distance to both our girls' future elementary school and middle school. When we moved out of New York City and to New Jersey in 2015, we rented in Maplewood thinking we would ultimately buy in Millburn. However, once we started to spend time in Summit, we were set on moving here. The sense of community is wonderful. The town offers events all year long that we love to take part in. We built a network of friends, and having children, the schools around us are very important, and the public school system here is extremely impressive. The train was also a huge plus, although we haven't had to use that benefit in a while. Due to the pandemic, we decided to keep our kindergartner in CPC, a local preschool with very small class sizes. Our other daughter goes there as well. However, we fully intend to send all of our children to Brayton for elementary school and to continue their education through the Summit school system. When I found out I was pregnant with our 3rd child, we initially looked to upsize within the town. However, between the highly competitive housing market and my refusal to leave my neighborhood, we realized that as long as we were able to renovate, we were better off staying. We recognize that our location in town is ideal, and the renovation, while challenging to do so with a young baby at home, is well worth it. Initially, we were unsure what our project would require with regards to variances. However, we know others in town who have done renovations, and we became familiarized with the timeline and expectations. While a variance offers extra work and time, we were happy to work towards obtaining one in order to make our house into what we need. We have a few neighbors on our street who have done similar additions to ours on similar lot sizes. We have spoken about the projects with neighbors at 7 Laurel, Julie, our neighbor David at 9 Laurel, our other neighbor Dave at 2 Laurel, and our neighbor Karen at 8-12 Laurel, all of whom were very supportive. They were excited for us, and not to brag, but they were happy that we were staying in the neighborhood. Since this variance is a relatively small space on our second floor, no one expressed interest in attending the meeting. We currently have 3 daughters, yet only 1 bath. I'll give you a minute to have pity on my husband. Jokes aside, we would love to take a shower that did not require fishing toys out of prior to hopping in. We also currently have 3 bedrooms. While our older daughters love sharing a room, I would love to ultimately offer everyone their own space. In addition, that our house is 100 years old, our current primary bedroom does not offer the space that we would like. I do not need a huge bedroom, but having a bedside table would be a luxury at this point. When we moved into the house, we had 2 children under the age of 2. Our focus was surviving. We fixed everything in the house that needed to be fixed. For example, we replaced the dishwasher, refrigerator, and washing machine, but have kept work on the house to a minimum. We are very lucky that our house is in relatively good shape. Now that the majority of our children do not require constant attention, we could shift our attention to making this house into exactly what we need. If there are any questions of me, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, I'd like to pass it off to our architect, who can discuss the particulars of the variance we require.
Okay. Any questions from the board for the applicants? No. And just to quickly check, are there any members of the interested public here for this application? That's good. I'll keep it to 30 minutes. Wonderful. Then let's swear in Cindy. Grab a seat in the first row, and if we need you, we'll call you back.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Cindy Bonerlay, Boerner-Lay.
Thank you, and I believe you've been admitted as an expert in front
Couple
of the board
times before.
recently. Have there been any changes to your credentials since the last time?
No.
All right, I imagine the board would like to accept you as an expert architect at this point.
I do have one exhibit. Do we want to mark that in
Is it
now?
new? Yeah, if it's
Before
new.
we get going?
Yep,
Yes.
sure. Chris, what's the new exhibit going to be? A1?
Yeah, we'll mark this as A1.
I'm sorry, you guys are going to have to sort of share, if that's allowed. I don't even know if that's allowed. Yeah.
I'll let you Chris's copy.
I'm going to kind of,
Kind of back down.
I'm going to scoot this over here so I can refer to the drawings. Okay, let me briefly walk you through the project. These are the same drawings that you have in front of you. There are no changes or anything. So this is sheet 3, the existing first floor plan. So we're not actually doing any work at the moment at the first floor, though it is the intention on phase 2 to fill in the same corner that we're going to be filling in on the second floor, but because that won't change any building coverage or lot coverage issues, I don't think any additional variances would be required. On the first floor, there's an office, there's a living room, there's a dining room, and there's an eat-in kitchen area, a powder room, and a deck. Again, right now, there won't be any changes, but the future intention is to kind of just open up the floor plan, and like I said, fill in the same corner we're filling in at the second floor. At the second floor, as Ali mentioned, there's 3 bedrooms and a bathroom, and the intention is to build over the existing 1-story eat-in kitchen area to create a master bedroom suite with a master bedroom and bathroom over the existing space. This is sheet 2. Your rear elevation. So as mentioned, as you can see, the existing first floor is not squared off. So the second floor addition is creating an additional 16 square foot of building coverage, which is basically leading us into why we need a variance. The existing is already non-conforming at 1,740.66 square feet or 29%, whereas 1,200 square feet or 20% is the max allowed. Our proposed will be 1,756.66 square feet, or 29.28%, an increase of 16 square feet, or 0.28%. Our lot coverage won't change since this area where we're doing the overhang is already paved. Our increase is extremely de minimis. Our floor area ratio bulk is still below the allowable, thus I don't believe we are overbuilding the site. We have a C1 hardship of a detached garage, which is placed far back on the property, which tends to usually create lot and building coverage issues, with the garage being at the back of the property and a really long driveway to access it. But mainly, we're looking for a C2 variance, the benefits outweighing any possible negative effects. Updating the housing stock of a 1920s home will blend into the character of the existing home and neighborhood. We actually did a similar addition at 15 Laurel Ave a few years ago that also required a building coverage as well as front and side yard setback variances. If you take a look at the handout that I gave you, I don't think there'll be any negative effects. It doesn't block the light air view of the neighboring properties. The first picture is actually the house directly to the left of my client's house, that picture, and you can see that they did a very similar addition on the back of their house as well. If you go to the next picture, that's actually the house directly to the right of 5 Laurel. It's a corner lot, so it's actually their backyard. So therefore, I believe it's very well separated with space, trees, and actually the neighbor's detached garage is at the back of their property. So I think it's very well separated, as well as, like I said, with landscaping. And if you look at the third page of your handout, that's a Google map. You can see our house. You can see the neighboring's house that has that rear addition on it. And again, if you go 2 houses over to the left from our house, you can see 15 Laurel, which is the addition we did a couple of years ago. That basically wraps it up. So in conclusion, I hope the board looks favorably upon our application for all the reasons that I've already mentioned. I think it's, like I said, a de minimis addition, and it doesn't really affect anybody in any way, shape, or form.
Mr. Dower, anything jump out at you here that you want to draw to the attention of the board?
Well, as Cindy just mentioned, everything is fairly de minimis. The only thing that we had a comment on was the location of any air conditioner, condensers, or generator.
Is that something you can offer some perspective on?
So is there air conditioner on the survey? You don't have an air conditioning condenser, do you? Right, do you have central air? You do have central air. So where is your AC condenser currently?
Well, there's a unit outside between us and 7 Laurel.
So to the left, on the side yard to the left of the house. Okay. And we're not doing a generator. Okay.
So the only thing we'd have to conform to the ordinance as far as screening and setback.
Yeah, and it's an existing condenser. We're not doing.
There's no additional condenser being added for the addition? Great. Thank you, Mr. Dower. It's a good softball for you, first one back. Any questions from members of the board? Scott?
Yes, I assume it's the case, but could you confirm that the siding that you're proposing is to match the existing house?
Yes, we're doing all this, yeah.
Okay, great.
Anyone on this side? Okay, wonderful. I believe you're the only expert witness, and I'll check again. Any members of the interested public here for questions or comments? Seeing none? Okay, all right, well done. Anything, Ally or Adam, you'd like to provide in closing? Okay. All right. Andy, any conditions?
The only condition is our usual one, that compliance with any conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum.
Okay. Who would like to begin deliberations then on this case? Go for it. Don't work too hard.
That's why I'm getting it
Yeah.
done
That's why
early.
they paid the big bucks.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So looking at the property, it's such a minimal renovation, and I did notice other homes have very similar renovations, so I would definitely approve this application.
Care to add? Yep, Claire?
I wanted to note that the lot width is about 20% smaller than what's required. So they're already starting behind the 8 ball, and were this a full-size lot, many of these the existing nonconformities would be much smaller or wouldn't exist at all. So I don't think they should be handicapped because the lot's so small.
Good observation. Scott? Yep.
Yeah, I think this is an entirely reasonable proposition. They could have gone and matched the existing roof line, and they didn't. I mean, the scale and proportion seems to make complete sense to me. I think it's a nice addition, and I would vote to approve.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Contrary thoughts? No? Okay. I too could support the application. It's relatively de minimis. Claire gets extra credit for calling out the undersized lot there as a hardship, so well done. And with that, Chris, could you give us, well, actually, do we have a motion to approve the application?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
a second. All right. Chris, you give us a roll call?
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right.
Thank you
very
very
much. Yep. All right. All right, next up is Thomas Walden IV, representing Barbara and Thomas Walden, 68 Valley View Avenue. Just if you'll do us a favor and pull the microphone back over to you.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
I'm Thomas Walden IV, representing my parents, Tom and Barbara Walden of 68 Valley View Avenue, Summit.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about the application here tonight?
Sure. Basically, we're here tonight just to seek relief to reconstruct a detached garage structure that was damaged in a storm after a huge oak tree landed on it. I'm a builder and will be performing the work. After investigating the structure, it was determined there was no practical way to repair it other than to take it down and start over. It was a barn that was post and beam construction, about 100 years old. We decided while we were rebuilding the structure to modify the doors such that a car could actually fit inside, which also helps us to conform with the zoning requirement. The footprint of this reconstruction shed to the west end of the structure that previously existed. The exterior materials will match the existing house, shiplap, cedar, paint grade. There'll be no plumbing in there. There'll be the existing 30 amp circuit that'll be reinstalled. We consulted Bill Kaufman, who's here tonight, to prepare plans to reconstruct the building. We think this falls within the ordinance protecting existing non-conforming structures, 35-12.3. Restoration of a lawfully existing non-conforming building or structure. When a building is non-conforming because it fails to comply with any height, area, yard, off-street parking, or requirements of this chapter other than use, and such building is partially destroyed, such building may be restored to its prior condition, provided, however, that such restoration shall not enlarge the previously existing non-conformance. So the new building is actually slightly smaller than the existing building. Required garages, dwellings in an R15 zone require a minimum of 2 enclosed garage spaces, requiring 20 feet by 20 feet for 2 garages. We are well within all bulk requirements for lot and building coverage limits, as well as setback requirements. We have noticed for a height variance and area for an accessory structure, maximum wall height, and longest dimension. It's really up to you guys to decide if these are necessary.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Understanding that we're going to hear from an architect next, am I correct?
If you need to.
We need to.
I think you stole his thunder.
He helped prepare that.
Any questions for the applicant from members of the board? Okay, Mr. Dower, anything you want to jump on there?
You know, again, it's a de minimis increase as far as impervious coverage. I think there's no change in the building coverage. Look at my notes. Very small. And the only, same comment before, air conditioning units and a generator, any location.
We're not gonna air condition the garage, and, we will not have a generator either for the garage.
All right, fair enough. Any other questions from members of the board? Any ideas? No?
See, and just a reminder, that garden shed won't be rebuilt, correct?
No,
Okay.
no. It's the new structure is very similar to the existing structure, just, you know, the old garage has a little bump out. It used to be a horse stable.
Oh.
So they bumped it out when everyone used to drive like a huge Cadillac. And they put a little 2-foot shed roof and then the garage doors. This will just be in the same plane. Other than that, it'll look very similar, and my 80-year-old parents will put their cars in it again.
Barring any further questions from the board, are there any members of the interested public here tonight for this application? All right, hearing and seeing none. Maybe if the architect just wants to give a nod, yay or nay. Do you feel like you have anything to add to the testimony for the applicant? No? All right. Very well. Andy, any conditions that the board should consider?
Our same usual one, compliance with conditions noted in the board engineer's report.
All right, fair enough.
We wanna,
I think that's a member of the city staff pacing. That's okay. You want to take a peek? Yeah. All right. Just wait a moment. There may be some folks in the lobby. We just want to make sure they have an opportunity to chime in if they've got something to add.
I have a question. There's no second floor, right? It's just
It's just storage. It's just
Okay.
a framed building.
yeah, you're not gonna make like an apartment on this, like, you know, like a little, okay.
Got to rebuild it, and then my parents can sell. And go to a more smaller place.
Just hang for just a minute.
I'm not looking to looking forward to cleaning out the attic.
Just wait. We're just waiting one quick moment here for our board secretary to return. All right. He gave us the okay. All right, with that, understanding that the sole condition is acceptance of the engineer's letter, who would care to begin deliberations for this case? Liz already did her hard work.
Thank you.
David, how about you? You're next up.
Okay. So looking at the property, I think making this change will render a significant safety improvement. If you look at the existing structure, it is beautiful, historic, and dangerous. You know, I was there today and looked like it could. There were all sorts of angles on the wood that didn't look all that natural. So I think this will keep with the architectural style of the property. If you look at the site plan, from an elevation standpoint, the garage is actually lower than the main house, so it's really not going to affect any sightlines from the street. The lot is probably wider than your typical lot in the area, so it can easily accommodate this non-conforming structure, so I am in favor.
Care to add to Mr. Mullins' comments? No? Just that good. Okay. I'll echo what David shared, especially because it's more or less a replacement to the existing, though no longer fully functional structure. It should have no additional negative impact, and I assume with the new construction, perhaps some positive benefit for the property and the surrounding neighborhoods. So with that, do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Give it to David, second to Mr. Millay. All right. Chris, will you give us a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Steiner? Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein?
Yes.
Mr. Millet?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Chairman Spur?
Yes. All right, good luck. All right, we're going to move next to 16 Dunder Drive, Elizabeth Haynes. I'm going to recuse, so Liz is in charge.
Oh, boy. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Elizabeth Laura Haynes, Haines.
Thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about the application?
Sure. I'm applying for a variance for a deck that is already built. Mistakes were made. And the builder built the deck. It was supposed to be on grade as a patio, no more than 1 foot off of the ground cover. And the builder didn't realize that there was a grade in the back. So now part of the deck is up much higher than it should be. And so now it's square footage attached to the house. So I think it's like 18.18, is supposed to be the limit, it's at 19. And so I looked into different options about shoring up the side to 6 feet around. Krista, everyone was so like good with me about like walking me through this. I got divorced in 2018 and bought the house for my ex. And so this is the first time me doing a big project, and clearly I'm not very good at it. So that mistake was made. So trying to like figure out like a cost-effective way to do it. The variance seemed to be the best way to do it. So I'm hoping that the board agrees, and then we can go on. So basically, what I need to do is need to apply for the variance and get the overage agreed to, and then build some railings. But the deck is actually really nice. Just needs some railings and approval from the town. So I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Dower, do you have any questions?
Well, the only question we had was on the building coverage, just trying to confirm the actual increase in
Yeah.
building coverage.
I saw that there was a discrepancy between
Right.
what Tom Conway had, and then what we have. So it's like 18.18 to 19, and then the other one says 20?
Correct.
Is that, yeah, so there's a discrepancy of about 0.82, right?
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
so I need to reconcile that just to make sure, so.
Okay.
I'm not sure, yeah, that's the first time that it was brought to my attention when I saw the comments, so that was new information with me. Chris and I went back and forth about making sure that it was just 18.18 to 19, so I could go back to her, I can talk to Tom, I can have them remeasure, whatever you need me to do, I'm happy to go forward.
Put that in the condition to remeasure.
That's fine. And
Okay.
the impervious coverage is decreased, so there's no stormwater required.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Another nice and simple one. Mr. Steiner?
Should we condition this then that Krista and the applicant and Chris get together and get the number correct?
Yeah, that would be in the
That
condition.
is that going to be a condition?
Yeah, so.
Okay. Sorry, I can't look through this, Chris.
I know, sorry.
I'm sorry, and on Zoom, I can just look at the monitor.
I should also mention, Chris was also very helpful too. Thank you, hi, nice to meet you in person.
I imagine the condition that we're going to be looking for is that updated plans will be submitted to reflect the final building coverage value, and that it will be agreed upon by both Krista and the board engineer.
And not to exceed, do we have a number there?
20.3.
20.3.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Anyone else? Nice, simple one. Wonderful. Do we have a motion to approve?
Do you want it to live?
Well, yeah, right.
And
we
let me
should.
just also note the condition, both the
Oh, yeah,
conditions
that's
here, because we have first is, again, our usual compliance with all the conditions that were noted in the board engineer's report. And then the second will be, as we just discussed, that updated plans will be submitted to reflect the final building coverage value, which will be confirmed by both Krista, the zoning officer, as well as the board engineer.
Any comments?
I would be in favor of this application. I think we all understand what happens sometimes when you go to build these things, and it happens. And I think we all appreciate that you came back, and it's an honest mistake. And I mean, I see what's going on. Your property sort of slopes. It does look like you maybe need the railing just for safety. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm complete agreement, yeah.
yeah, but it looks like a really pretty deck, and I'm in favor of it. And
Thank you for your generosity, I appreciate that.
yeah.
I do want to draw a distinction between what we have here and some of the cases we've encountered in the past where people ask for forgiveness rather than permission. This
Right.
seems
Oh, no,
like
I want to fix
Right.
it.
Right,
I want to make it
right.
right. I can't sleep at night otherwise, so.
But I am in favor.
Thank
And I appreciate that you actually weighed the differences of like regrading your backyard and coming to the.
Lots of this.
Yes.
I mean, this actually project started in 2016, and then there 2020, and there was a lot of me trying to figure out what to do, so.
No, we appreciate it, and thank you for coming back. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Need a vote?
Hold on, yep.
Sure. Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Mullin?
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
And Vice Chairwoman Newell.
Yes.
Bring it back. I think it's,
I know. Hello, Steve. Hey, big Steve. What? No, he went to get the chair.
If you blinked, you might have missed your recusal.
Nothing Nice to see you.
Is everyone okay to proceed to the next case, or do you want to take a brief recess?
After 35 minutes.
All right. Just trying to keep you on the board, you know, so. All right, cool. Let's move then to the fourth application, Bradley and Roseanne Wilson, 15 Oxbow Lane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Nicole Madziak, Magdziak, of the law firm Day Pitney, here this evening on behalf of the applicants. Mr. Chairman, if I may provide our overview as our engineer is setting up, is that okay?
Of course, please,
Okay,
let's proceed.
great. So we are here this evening in connection with an application to construct a pool, patio, and related improvements on the property at 15 Oxbow Lane. As was confirmed in the review letters, this property is currently under construction. There was an existing house which was demolished and a new house is being built currently, which is pursuant to a grading permit that was approved by the town or by the city in October of 2020. So there is construction going on at the property. At the time of that initial application for construction permit, there's an existing pool and related patios on the property that were initially intended to stay. We are now proposing to remove those existing pool and patio areas and to install a new pool and related patio areas. So there are a couple of variances that are related to this application. The first one is for lot coverage. We are proposing 30.7% where 30% is permitted. We're also seeking variances for steep slope disturbance. As you'll hear from our engineer this evening, this property is encumbered with areas of steep slopes, and unfortunately we are unable to completely avoid them in order to build pretty much anything on the property. So we are here this evening seeking that relief as well. In order to sort of offset those steep slope disturbances, we are proposing many stormwater improvements, which our engineer will also speak about. And the third variance, which was brought to our attention by Ms. Anderson's review letter, is for a generator location. Generators in town are required to be no more than 15 feet from the house. In this particular application, we are about 2 feet over that. We're approximately 17 feet from the house, so we are going to be seeking relief for the generator location. As you'll hear from our witnesses, we do think it is appropriately close enough to the house and located in such a way that it will be fully screened as is required. We're just slightly over on the permitted distance from the house. So without further ado, if I can introduce my engineer, John Ferrante, John, if you can introduce yourself, please spell your name.
Good evening. John Ferrante, Ferrante.
Thank you, and if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Have you been admitted to this board before?
I'm sorry?
Have you been admitted as an expert before this board?
Not before this board, but
Okay.
others are in the area.
Can you briefly describe your background and experience?
Of course, pleasure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Newark College of Engineering and a Master from the same institution. Been practicing civil engineering for the last 40-plus years and been licensed for that length of time. I'm a PE in New Jersey and 5 other states, and I've appeared in similar expert witness on site plans throughout the state of New Jersey.
All right, I imagine, unless there's any questions, the board would like to accept your credentials at this point.
We will accept your credentials. Welcome.
Thank you.
So John, can you just describe for the board a brief overview of the property, particularly noting some of the topographic features and important features of this site?
Yes, obviously the aerial photograph that's on our title sheet and the drawings that we have here tonight are the ones that were submitted, revision B dated July of 2021. The property is roughly 0.8 acres, just under 1 acre, and it sits at the center of the drawing there. But the important thing on this property, there's roughly close to 40 feet difference in elevation between the driveway on Oxbow to the rear of the property to our neighbors to the east. And so there's a severe topographical elevation difference that we have to contain with, and that's why the steep slope variance is required. The site is heavily wooded in the rear. As indicated, the property was approved for a new home, and the original house had roughly 7,200 square feet of impervious area. With the approved new house that was approved in October of 2020, the impervious area was 10,400, roughly a 3,100 square feet increase. And now we're proposing with the, we'll be deleting, there's an existing pool in the rear, which I can show the board, and we're adding a new pool, a pool house, pool equipment, some minor tweaking of the walkways, but overall, what we're proposing for you tonight is 729 square feet in additional impervious area. More importantly, when we had submitted the drawings for the October permit that's under construction, we've added dry wells, and we were in close communication with a recently retired former city engineer, and she approved the dry wells, and we sized the dry well, oversized the dry well roughly for the 4,500 square feet. So the dry well that are currently there are oversized for the total impervious increase that we have proposed tonight with the additional 729. But we also note that your board engineer commented, we have their comment letter. We agree with all the comments, but we can go through each comment if the board so desires, but we agree with his comments. And he suggested that we add additional dry wells in the rear, and I can show where we're planning. That makes great sense because we do have a lot of water coming onto the property from all the properties to the east and south coming onto our property. So adding the additional dry well, it makes a lot of sense, and we will agree with it. And in fact, we provided preliminary design already to the board engineer, so he could see the calculation before tonight. So we feel that we've mitigated not only the steep slope. You can see the landscape architect added some very nice retaining walls. We're maintaining as much of the vegetation on the slope. We're not proposing to remove any of that vegetation. So we wanted to mitigate the additional steep slope variance. And the third variance that our attorney indicated was the generator being further than the 15 feet required. With that, I'll just go to the drawing so I can give you an idea of how we're planning on mitigating drainage, which I think is the important thing from a civil engineering perspective. Our landscape architect will take you into all the details of the application. With that, I can
just angle the mic that way and speak loudly towards it. We'll do our very best.
Try to speak loudly.
Sorry, Jamie and Scott.
Obviously, this is the title sheet, and with all the bulks that we've discussed and the impervious areas. But what we did to help the board understand what is happening, we provided the additional what was approved in October. So you can see the existing pool, the new house, the new driveway, some of the the walkways and in the rear hardscaping. So the property, the Wilsons, after this was approved and under construction, decided that the pool really needed upgrading, and so you can see on the bottom is the new pool configuration. Is not much larger than the existing, although we are adding the pool house and pool equipment. And you see a lot of the retaining walls that the landscape architect is proposing to mitigate the steep slope variance. And we provided the drainage design on our sheet figure 4. Actually, what we did was we enlarged the plan because it was too small to see. So what this is the enlarged plan that we have in the drawing set. So should we mark this exhibit A1, or it's the same, we just enlarged it for the board to be able to see the drainage features.
Mr. Wall, I think we should mark this as Exhibit A1 since it's not
That would be
exactly
my
the same.
suggestion, yeah.
If you can please mark it with A1 and then just describe what this is and the date of the plan.
Yes, the date of the plan is the same as indicated in revision B in July 2021. We just took one of the insets that was on the drawing and we enlarged it so that we could point out the different features. So it's really, nothing's changed. But what I would like to point out is that there is, from our neighbors to the east, there's an existing catch basin that currently was piped that brought water from our neighbor onto our property that water sort of flowed overland and then found its way back down. So we're intercepting that flow in the catch basin and piping it down to our system here. So we have additional catch basin that we're providing both on the landscaped area between the pool and the house and the patio. And we're collecting all that water and we're bringing it to the front. With the design that was done in October of last year, working with the town engineer, we located the 2 dry wells that you see there on the bottom left of the drawings. And during the construction, we unearthed there were 2 lines that came through the property. The source was unknown, but we captured that flow and we directed it to the stormwater. In fact, what was happening was those lines were connected to the sanitary, which is not allowed, and the city engineer agreed with us that to redirect that flow to the new manhole. And then from the manhole, we're tying to the existing catch basin further north on Oxbow. So all the water from the site that basically sheet flowed down from the old driveway. You can see the old driveway was here, which caused some problem with the neighbors. So now we're redirecting that with a retaining wall. So we're protecting our neighbor to the north, and we're collecting all that water and down to the catch basin. Now the dry well that we'll be adding, it will be located where this catch basin is in this area. So what that will do is also help to retain the stormwater, so that we're not impacting. We understand Oxbow does have some current issue that the city engineer had pointed out, that historically that some of the lines need to be cleaned out. In fact, just this afternoon we visited the site, and that catch basin is really full of materials, and that could be the cause where some of the water takes the pond on Oxbow. But in essence, we've mitigated the additional impervious, and we're providing the additional dry well as well.
And Mr. Ferrandi, as you had explained, in the rear of the property, there is currently a catch basin?
Yeah, basically we had a conversation with our neighbor's engineer who designed the system, and he assured us that it's functioning properly as designed. However, there is some water that gets down to this catch basin that daylights on the rear of the property, which will capture that water.
And one of the comments that we received relates to a fence that we're proposing in that area, and we are agreeing to move that fence further off the property line so that the gate in that area opens only on our property, correct?
Correct. line that you see there is over our property line. So our client will is adding a new fence along the entire property to the rear. We'll be glad to move the fence away so that the gate opens on our property, not on the neighbor's property.
And the purpose of that gate is so we can get to that rear area of the lot, correct?
Yeah, we basically, correct, but let's say we really don't need the gate if we didn't have to, but I think the property owners wanted the gate in case they needed to check on that catch basin. I think I surmise that was the reason, unless I'm mistaken.
I mean, if the board would permit, you can shed some light on that.
Let me just,
Oh, yes.
swear you in first. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please just state your name, spell your last name very quickly.
My name is Bradley Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N.
Thank you.
As Mr. Ferrante was explaining, the gate is there so that we have the opportunity, if it were to become the case that the catch basin were clogged with debris, that we could clean it out. Our neighbors to the back live quite substantially uphill from that catch basin. It's at the very rear of their property, I would say 30 or 40 feet below the ground level of their home, and it would be very inconvenient for them to come down and clean it. I actually spoke with my neighbor earlier today, and we discussed this issue, and they had indicated to us that they would be perfectly happy to let us access their property for the limited purpose of cleaning out that catch basin. So the gate is there, so we don't have to hop the fence to do that, should it be necessary.
Just to add, want to point out on sheet figure 4, in the brown color is the steep slope in the front, and what we're proposing to impact the about 2,000 square feet of steep slope. And again, the retaining walls will mitigate the disturbance. And if I can, I will show the generator or the lens. I can do that. And lastly, the third variance that we're asking for is the generator that's currently located to the side, on the north side, on the side of the house, which is slightly over that 15 feet. Also want to note that the approved lot, the approved plans are back in October last year. The generator was originally, when the plans were first submitted, in the front, then they got moved to the side. And with the current landscaping plan, we're proposing to, we rotated the generator, screened it, but it's, as indicated, 2 feet past the 15-foot setback. That basically concludes my overview of the application. As I said, the town engineer, the board engineer has the comments. We can go through the comments, but we stipulated that we went through them. We agreed with all the comments, and we're adding the additional dry well.
Thank you. As a condition of the application, we would ask for approval of the board engineer's letter, which seem to be found acceptable. Mr. Dower, maybe you want to kick us off before we go to board questions. Is there any specific points you'd like to emphasize? Not to prejudice your commentary, but this screams out to me stormwater management plan,
Right.
maybe retention of drainage jurisdiction, but
Yeah, I
just
would
my idea.
recommend the retention of the drainage jurisdiction. The applicant is proposing to accommodate the existing flow that was on the property, enhance it with the dry wells in the front, that's already, I believe, under construction, if not already there, and install a new one in the back, which Mr. Ferranti indicated would be where there's an inlet shown, and it would be just to the, just behind where the generator is proposed. So that's using an existing inlet, putting in the seepage pit that's going to pits to accommodate the additional overflow or the additional square footage. And that, again, an overflow will also drain into the city system, which is located, which they're going to enhance in the street, which Mr. Ferranti noted currently hooks up to the sanitary sewer, which is a big no-no in most any town, and run a line down the street and hook up to an existing catch basin. So it's a very positive improvement for the property.
A question, I guess, back for you from me is, what is the likely impact on this catch basin outside of the property? Yeah, I think there's a clear benefit for moving the flow of this water out of the sanitary sewer system. but just trying to be sensitive to impact in the broader area. What's the
Right.
anticipated?
On a regional basis, obviously, our project will not greatly improve the regional issue that may exist on Oxbow, and that the city engineer agreed with that. In fact, that she commented that the system needs to be cleaned. In fact, even this afternoon, we visited that catch basin is filled to the top. So any maintenance to that catch basin will improve, because you can see a lot of the remnants of sediments from rainstorm, and we've been hit with some heavy rainstorms in the last couple of weeks. But our property, in addition to mitigating the additional impervious area, will help in that the dry wells will retain water and release it slowly in case the water cannot infiltrate into the ground. It will be released slowly. So the retaining water on site is a classic engineering solution to help the downstream side. But I have to be fair to the board that this project will not greatly improve any issues that are existing in the area.
Will it make it worse?
No, absolutely not.
And will the on-site stormwater management improve at least the neighboring properties?
Right, and you see, as I indicated, and our landscape architect will discuss that further, well, especially the property to the north, we're adding a retaining wall, so in the past, water found its way there. Now with the retaining wall, it will be directed, it will stay on our property and be directed to the manhole and out, so that will definitely improve. All the other properties surrounding us, to the south, to the east, and to the north, to the northeast, are all topographically much higher than us, and all their runoff sheet flows onto a lot of it onto our property. So we cannot impact our neighbors because topographically we just can't.
Okay, great. Other questions from the board?
I have a preparatory question. When you were making your presentation, you referenced plans dated July, and the ones at least a few of us have are dated May 18th.
No, it should be the July 8, 2021.
I have May, so the first issue date is May 14th, correct?
Right, but it's
Yes.
revision.
Last revision date under schedule of revision is July 8th, 2021.
Correct. Yeah.
I want to be sure that we've got the current
Yeah, it's
plan.
revision B. I just want to be clear that the drawing you should have is revision B.
I have revision A.
Yeah, you see the schedule of revision B,
This is
and
A.
also in the bottom right-hand corner.
I say revision A.
Did I clarify that?
Look at this. You're saying May 18?
The schedule of
Is the
revision.
last time it was revised July
Up
8th?
here, the
Yeah.
schedule of revision.
Well, you see revision B, it's on the
Yeah,
bottom.
Okay.
That's the last revision. Just wanted to clarify that those are the drawings that
On
were
figure 2.
On figure 2, I have revision date, schedule of changes. I don't see a date.
7/8, issued for review, and 7/8/21.
If you go just above the fold on the right-hand side.
It says revision date, description of changes, but all I have is A and 514.
Then maybe for the benefit of Ms. Toth, who wasn't able to follow, can you briefly
Well,
describe?
if it's on the city website, I can watch it there.
Just to provide a summary of what the revisions were.
Yes, that'd be helpful.
As initially
Although it may be a
submitted, these
different-
plans did not
maybe
vary
a
the
different
revision.
Excuse me, sorry. Hey, Joe and I mean, would you just, sorry, the attorney's speaking. Go ahead.
The initial plans that were submitted did not very clearly describe what was currently under construction. So it was just a lot of information on the plan, so the revision used labels to call out what is currently under construction
Okay.
per the construction and grading permits and what is actually before this board seeking
Thank you. Was there anything specific, Claire, that you
I
wanted to call out?
I just wanted to be sure, and actually what is on the website is a more recent version than the paper I have in front of me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, apologize.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, wonderful.
I had a question.
Yes. No, I've got it on, I've got the city website.
All right, we just need to remember that, we're under, the court recording, so we can only speak one at a time. So, David, please.
Yeah, so it looks like the revision predates the city forester's comments, and I was wondering if you could speak to them, where he's talking about, I guess, the location of the yellow poplar tree at its drip line.
Yeah, the forester is concerned about this poplar tree, which is a very large diameter poplar tree, which we want to maintain. His concern was that the pool house was getting close to the drip line. Now, the equipment shed that you see here, which is closest to the trunk of the tree, that does not have a foundation, if I understand correctly. It's at grade, so that will not impact the drip line. So the pool house will have a slab on grade foundation, not very deep, so it should not impact the poplar. But I'll let the landscape architect provide more commentary on that aspect.
Great, thank you. Any questions from members of the board? Mr.
I have a
Stone?
question.
Sorry.
Okay, quick, the access to the other properties,
Catch Basin.
well, what happens if that property ownership changes and they, with the new owners, say, gee, well, we really don't want you going in there, or they decide that they're gonna do something else in that area or whatever? How does that affect what's gonna happen to this property if that well is no longer functioning properly?
Well, according to the discussion we had with Mr. Clark, who's the engineer for the neighbors, he indicated that there are existing dry wells that were placed when the neighboring house was constructed, and they're working as designed. We
So
surmise
if this one does not work, what happens to this property?
Well, if those dry wells don't work.
No, the one we're talking about them getting access through the gate.
Yeah.
I'd like to clear,
No, in essence, that catch basin, if it ever becomes clogged, it needs to be cleaned. Otherwise, the water will not penetrate into the catch basin, into the storm, and will sheet flow over the catch basin.
And where does that water then go? To this
Well,
property, to other
fortunately-
properties? Because are we gonna require, and should we require, that they have indefinite access to this so it always works?
Well, if I may,
Please.
we, as for our application, if that catch basin clogs and overflows, if you recall, currently, that catch basin has two 4-inch lines that daylight to the rear of our property. So currently, that water from that catch basin is sheet flowing onto our property. We're collecting that where the two 8-inch lines are and collecting it into our system that I indicated. Let me go back to that.
So you're taking care of your neighbor's water?
He's next, yeah.
Excuse me? I didn't.
You're taking care of your neighbor's water?
It's a condition that we found and we're addressing it from our perspective, yes.
And if it fails to work, all of that water is gonna come into your property. So I would think that there's got to be a reason to deal with this.
I understand that, but
In
the
perpetuity.
failure in my mind would be that the entire stormwater from the neighboring site it fails and it doesn't work. As I said, for us, all that water was the water that overflowed currently was being sheet flowed on our property. We're collecting it. So the worst case for us is if the catch basin doesn't work, that water will be collected by what we're proposing with our catch basin. So,
And are
so
you
I
saying
think
that-
we
Are
would.
you saying that what you're proposing is enough to take care of that, no matter what happens with that catch basin?
Correct. Because we're providing an additional catch basin to collect that water. Yes.
In the event of such a failure, would there be any detriment to any other property other than your own?
No, again, go back to the topography of the property. All the water that comes down to our property flows within our property. All our neighboring properties are much higher topographically than us, so we cannot impact our neighbor's property. The only property that like I said, historically was a problem, but we've addressed that with the retaining wall. It's our neighbor's property to the
Let's
north.
take a pause here, and I understand there's a representative from a neighboring property, perhaps this property in question.
And council, just if it's okay with you, as opposed to waiting until the end and going
Yeah, I
back
think
through it,
it's
should we
relevant.
address it at this point? Great.
I'll give the history, and then you can jump in.
Oh.
All right.
All right.
Should I swear in?
Please.
Yes, please.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Andrew Clark, C-L-A-R-K-E.
And Mr. Clark, I know you've appeared before the board a number of times. Have there been any changes to your credentials?
There
since
have
then?
not.
And council, do you have any questions for Mr. Clark?
No, I do not.
The board would accept your credentials as well.
Sure, so I'd just like to first give a little bit of context to the catch basin and some of the drainage. I think
Maybe even before that, though.
Sure,
Who
sure.
are you here on behalf of?
Sure.
In relation to the.
I was contacted by the Daninis, who live immediately behind at, I think it's 46 Fernwood. So the catch basin in question is technically on their property. So a few years back, I was engaged by the Daninis to investigate some drainage concerns that were raised by the previous owner. Because what had taken place historically, as Mr. Ferranti correctly pointed out, there's about 2.5 acres of overland flow that all comes to this place. It's like a hollow that's there, and it's directed right where that inlet is. So 2 owners back decided that there was too much water coming on. They had to do something, understandably. So they constructed an inlet. I don't know if they got any permits or went through any process, but they constructed the inlet that's there in order to sort of cut that off. And they brought it down to what was the head of their driveway, sort of like halfway up the property. At different times, that would flow with different intensities. And it really, from my investigation, seemed to be related to, when we had a very wet season. And they put a pool in and rerouted those pipes around, and it really didn't change anything. So the flows were still coming down their driveway. What I observed was that it was coming down the driveway and then going down the road to the nearest catch basin that's shown on the plans in Oxbow. That would happen even in the winter sometimes. So you had icing, you had wet conditions where moss was growing. It was really problematic for the owners and for some of the neighbors on the street. So I think top level, what they're proposing to do here is going to create a great improvement from that standpoint. So the fact that they're putting this manhole and then piping it directly down to the catch basin is going to be a big improvement and help with those issues that have historically gone on. I think the concerns that we're discussing about the catch basin in the back, Mrs. Danini is pointing out that she'd probably be more receptive to the idea of simply reconstructing that inlet just on the other side of the boundary line to avoid the whole need for an easement and the access issues that we are discussing, because it is correct that if that inlet gets clogged to the point where it's not working, it's going to be the 15 Oxbow owners who will suffer the consequences of that, so to speak. We don't want that. I'm sure they don't want that either. But to avoid the complication of the land use issues, maybe simply moving it a little bit. And I didn't bring this up in our discussion because we did talk before about this project, and I told them I was coming to bring up some questions. But in hearing the testimony and the discussion that's come up about the easement and the access, I think it might be most appropriate just to relocate that. In doing that, the request I was also going to make is that there's a stretch coming up from the street to the back of the proposed driveway where the pipe is 8 inches. And then from there back to this catch basin area, it's shown as a 6-inch pipe. I think it would be wise to size that entire length at 8 inches, just to not only have enough capacity, even in major events like we've just seen, but also an 8-inch pipe is much less prone to maintenance issues and clogging. It's a lot easier to keep clear. So that's my top level recommendation, is to size that pipe up going back to there. And then subsequent to that, based on the discussion, I would suggest that that inlet simply be moved onto their property. That way, the maintenance of it is directly controlled by the people that it most directly affects. That make sense?
So we have had the opportunity to discuss the language
Right,
with our
right.
clients, because that was brought to our attention ahead of time. We have no problem doing that. We may have a couple questions on the catch basin. That is not something that we were proposing as part of our application. And
Sure.
we are taking care of water that's coming from a neighboring lot in addition to our own. So we understand we're at the bottom of the hill, and obviously this plan that was designed is to make sure that anything that's on our lot is properly brought to the street and then connecting in the most appropriate way. So we would love to solve whatever problems we reasonably can as part of this application, but unfortunately it's an area where many properties drain water to, so it's something that, John, you can
Well,
speak to, that would be helpful, but
the-
I'm not
the-
sure that we can
Yeah,
fix
just
it
a
all.
couple of questions, if I may, sorry, I don't mean to. So all I need to confirm is that the catch basin is just an area drain. It's not, there's no other pipes from other dry wells that overflow into that catch basin.
Yeah, my investigation and my inspection of that showed no other pipes. It doesn't appear that there's any piping. What happens is in the back, there's like a hollow that forms, and it's almost like a stream when it's really raining that comes down and it lands right where that catch basin is. And the catch basin, I think, historically, and Mrs. Danini would probably support that with her testimony, was constructed on the Danini's property, even though it was a previous owner of this property that built it. Which is simply giving you context to the history of it, that's all. It's not placing blame or saying who did what, it's just that's how it ended up. And probably because the fence, as you pointed out, is mislocated versus the boundary, so they probably just came just inside the fence and built the inlet.
Yeah, to that, obviously, we have proposed a new catch basin, literally 10, 12 feet away. from
Right.
existing. So theoretically, we can make use of this catch basin and avoid that catch basin.
Right, so rather than positioning the catch basin you have proposed to pick up the 4 inches, just put it over where that is and we'll remove the old one.
Right. So
That way, the question of maintenance is not involving multiple owners, because the Daninis may at some point sell and move, and, even if you have an easement, you either have an easement or you put the obligation on those owners, and as was correctly pointed out, it's rather down the hill from their house. So if they decide, well, we're not really gonna maintain it, then, then unfortunately, it sits unmaintained. It's probably better to have control over that, I would think.
Yeah, so we don't conceptually object, so what I think would like to propose, if I may, is that I'd like to inspect that catch basin a little more than we have, and work with the board engineer. If we see that removing that off-site catch basin and concentrating on what we have proposed works for my client, then we'd be happy to do that.
Sure.
So what the board would do is we would condition the application on the submission and the approval of a stormwater management plan, inclusive of whatever the two parties here agree is reasonable. And again, subject to the review and approval of the board engineer. It sounds like we have two well-intentioned, knowledgeable parties here that are interested in a solution that works for everyone involved. So if that's acceptable, we would condition the application accordingly.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Danini, would you care to add anything? Sorry, you've been jumping out of your seat there. You're going to step up, yep. Just state your name.
Hi, Lisa Danini, 46 Fernwood Road.
And ma'am, please raise your right hand.
Oh.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, because I think in his testimony, he said that the catch basin was ours and on our property, and he's not sure what, it was put in by the prior owners. I just want that to be clear. And it was never asked of us or anything, along with multiple fences that have been put onto the property, that we bought it knowing there was one old fence and now there's another fence, and we just never wanted to get in a dispute. So I just wanted to clarify. I'm not sure, I assume you would address this with them, but they probably chose that point because it's the lowest point. But anyway, yeah, I do not want to give away any of our rights for our property for them to have access. So it'd be better to move this and get rid of it, I guess.
I think we've heard, at least what I've heard from the respective engineers, is there's a solution that does not require any encumbrance upon your property and can satisfy the stormwater management concerns that exist.
Right.
And
Great.
we have a tremendous board engineer that's gonna really turn the screws on the project.
Great, thank you.
So I
Chris,
encourage you to stay in close
basically agree with
contact
that?
and
Yes.
continue to work closely with them. Mr.
Yes.
Steiner, sorry?
Yeah, I think that's a logical solution.
Compromise you think will work?
Right, because they can maintain the catch basin on their property. It'll be designed in conjunction with their engineer. They agreed to upsize the pipe from the 6-inch to the 8-inch, so it's the entire length. It gets the water out of the sanitary into the stormwater system where it should be. And then the city will have to maintain, as they do, all the catch basins throughout the year.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Wait, I have a question for you.
Good.
Can you clarify what you mean, what you're talking about with the fences? You said there was like a fence and you didn't put it on the
Well,
property.
the area is so much lower on our property, so when we bought our property, we knew there was a small wooden fence that was our neighbors, our lower neighbors, that
Are you talking about the people who, like this property?
we purchased the property in 2003, so way before, 2 owners before them. So we knew that they had a wooden fence that was slightly on our property and slightly on, and then on their property the rest of the way. And then the next owners put up another fence back there, and now they're going to be putting in a new fence, which we had just talked, I talked with the neighbor, I just said, if you're gonna be putting up a new fence, if you could just remove all those old fences that were theirs,
Okay.
and we'll work together to get that taken care of. But I think that's why whoever that, 2 owners ago put in this drain and piping that I'm sure was not brought before the
So wait,
town.
so you're saying there's a
There are
new
still-
fence going in, but there are still 2 old fences that are
There's at least 2 old fences
that are
there
on your property
that are
from
at points.
previous owners of your neighbors that will be removed as part of this entire project.
Yes,
Okay.
and then they said we could coordinate in getting it so that, it's
Yeah.
totally enclosed on my side and totally enclosed on their side. We'll work together to
Okay.
get that plan. But yes, they're going to remove the old ones that were never, I think, approved by the
Okay.
town or anything.
Sorry, I was just confused because I heard you mention that. And I was confused on, I started to get confused as where, who did what at a certain point.
Right,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. No.
Yeah,
thank you.
we pretty much haven't done anything down there. When we built our house, we had to do all those things, but none of it went into this, had nothing to do with the catch basin. That wasn't put in until after our construction was done,
But it was put in by the previous owners,
2 owners ago.
not not of your property, but of this
They built it
Oxbow
on my property, but for
Right.
their property, and
I
we just
see.
didn't notice because it's so far down
Yes, okay.
until later.
Okay, so now I have a question for the engineer. If it was built there because it happens to be the lowest point, and I don't mean to overstep, and I am not an engineer, and I know there are very qualified people here, but if you move this catch basin, even if it's only a few feet or whatever, if it's no longer at the lowest point, I mean, is it still gonna do the job?
Well, it'll be at a lower point, because topographically, from this catch basin to what we have proposed, we're lower, so the water is.
Okay, so it will still, the water will still naturally go.
Was the lowest point on her property.
Oh, okay, but not necessarily the lowest point
Yeah,
on
and
the
I
Oxbow
can't speak to that.
What I indicated that we'll inspect it and take a look, and we
Right.
may have to adjust the locations.
Right.
And obviously, we'll provide all that information to the board engineer and to the meeting, so that everybody's cognizant what our solution is on this particular issue. But
Right, because
I-
whatever's,
You agree, but that takes away the issue of access agreements and some.
Yeah, yeah, no.
right.
I understand.
And whatever is, I assume, we'll make sure that it doesn't cause a problem on our property. It'll be an agreement.
Review it when it's finalized.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
thank
Zanini.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. This is very helpful. Okay.
Hey, can I just make a statement for the record, just since you are taking a record of the proceedings in response to your question? We did not put any fences on the property since we
Yeah.
moved in. I can't speak to who installed them, and I also have my wife and I have no personal knowledge of the catch basin, who put it in, why it's where it is, but it is clearly over the property line for some reason.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, yeah.
think they're two good points, though, and could be argued, in our deliberation, that they add there's frankly a benefit to the application for resolving these encroachments and confusion that does exist, so we'll just note that. Any further questions for your witness, or he's worked hard enough? Okay, wonderful. All right, and I don't believe there's any other member of the interested public. You two came together, so with that, we can move to the next.
Great, thank you. Meredith Carmen, our landscape architect is here. We did submit a landscape plan as part of the application, which is what she'll be walking us through in her testimony.
Good evening. My name,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Meredith Carmen. Last name is Carman.
Thank you. And could you briefly describe your background and experience?
Yes, I'm a landscape architect. I graduated from Rutgers University in 1994. I've been licensed as a landscape architect in the state of New Jersey since 1999.
All right. Any questions from the board?
We're happy to accept your credentials. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Meredith, you can just walk us through your landscape plan that was submitted to the board.
Well, we were contacted by the Wilsons to help them to provide screening and just an aesthetic feel for the property. So we created basic foundation planting around most of the home. And then along the property lines, we've meant to enhance sort of the screening between the properties. There's a home directly to the downside of the drawing here. So they have some existing evergreens along the property line. We've chose to add to those just to further enhance the separation between the proposed residence and the existing residence to the lower side. On the other side, similarly, as well, there's some existing large evergreens. They've limbed up over time, and so underplanting those to enhance the screening of the neighbor where the residence is about here, and some additional hedging along this way to sort of create privacy for the new backyard. As stated previously, the existing pool resided along here. It's been moved to the back side of the property, and that was to allow for a level sort of lawn space for the family to enjoy outdoor activities. The new retaining walls were constructed along the steep slopes, which reside here. There's an existing stand of trees that reside on this hillside. Those trees are largely remaining. Some of the invasive Norway maples have been selectively removed, as you can see on the plan. And then we've done some understory plantings. There's been some deer browsing and such on the property, so we're trying to replenish some of those understory trees to enhance this hillside and also stabilize it a little bit better. Along the rear of the property, it's similar, some understory plantings. There's a large tree that John Linson pointed out in the corner of the property here on another area of steep slopes as well. So that's all being maintained and not disrupted. The structure is infringing slightly into what we would consider the drip line, which is here. And this is the structure as you see it. The Wilsons are very much looking to maintain the structure of this tree. So we've discussed with them about, during the construction of the structure, we would do some air spading to make sure that we were able to expose the roots, clean them back properly, and then do a series of deep root watering and feeding so that we can maintain the health of the tree and sort of mitigate any stress that it might be experiencing during the construction of the structure. So we are looking to preserve the tree in any way possible. And the generator, which we talked about here, which is slightly outside of the setback, is being fenced all the way around. And also there's additional plantings to help screen that generator from any view that you might have from the street.
And in addition to screening from the street view, the combination of the fence, plants around the fence, and the
reside in this area, and then they're being underplanted to help fill in sort of where the branches are now and what is going to fill now.
So in your opinion, in summary, this particular landscape plan not only provides a very aesthetically pleasing landscape plan for the property, but also functions to, in some ways, reinforce the slopes that we are disturbing with the retaining walls and vegetation that we're proposing.
Yes, I mean, we're cutting into the slopes here, and then we're also planting above them, just to, again, mitigate some of the deer browsing that's happened in the past and sort of stabilize those slopes again with new plantings. The fencing that's going around the property will help to keep the deer out and preserve the understory. As well as, plant selections have been made to try and prevent the deer from browsing, but we can only do so much.
That's all we have for our direct questioning.
Wonderful. Mr. Dower, anything for the landscape architect?
No comments.
Any questions from members of the board?
One, it's a beautiful design, but I was just wondering, how are you getting from your house to the pool? You don't have a walkway?
The Wilsons didn't request a walkway, they're just going to walk across the lawn, and that was acceptable for them. They wanted to keep this space as open and free of hardscape for play and other activities of the stuff.
You had mentioned mitigation measures for that, for the forester's comments on the tree. Can we put a condition in the approval around that?
Maybe for the submission of a landscaping plan. I don't know if Mr. Linson, you been in contact with Mr. Linson directly?
I have not spoken to
Okay.
him.
I found your testimony particularly compelling and thoughtful. Mr. Linson may find it similarly persuasive, or perhaps not. It was pretty strongly worded, his commentary in here about encroachment into the drip line. So whether you ingested that or not and reflected it in your testimony, I think he'd like to hear that and see that reflected. So we would condition the application on submission of a landscaping plan subject to Mr. Linson's review and approval.
And Mr. Chairman, can we just limit the conditions he has seen this plan to be a landscape plan, particularly addressing the comment related to this tree with whatever mitigation we testify to? I mean, it will be this plan that he gets with modifications in terms of notes as to how we're addressing this particular tree, because he has reviewed this whole plan.
If that's the case, I would assume his approval would move more expeditiously. So if we can provide him the full landscape plan for review and some special emphasis on this particular drip line question, perhaps we can nudge him towards that focal point of the plan.
Yes.
That'd be wonderful. Yep.
Thank you.
And you can work with Andy on the resolution to make sure that's phrased appropriately.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep. Any questions from the board? Any members of the public here? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another witness, or is that it for us?
That is all.
Excellent. Anything you'd like to say in summation? Again, seeing that there's no members of the public here to offer their comments.
The only thing I'd like to say in summation is just that we do understand we are requesting 3 separate variances as part of this application, but we do believe that the engineering and landscape design made a real effort and do actually mitigate the variances that we are requesting, so we hope that you look favorably upon our application.
Thank you. Andy, how do the conditions land?
I've got 4 conditions. First is the usual compliance with the board engineer's report. Second is that there will be submission and approval of a stormwater management plan, which shall be submitted to the board engineer, which will incorporate relocation of the catch basin onto the applicant's property and upgrading the size of the pipe from 6-inch to 8-inch, as discussed during testimony. Third condition is that the board is going to retain drainage jurisdiction for a period of 2 years. And the fourth and final condition is that a landscaping plan will be submitted to the city forester, which shall focus on the preservation of the yellow poplar tree for review and approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
if I just may,
Please.
in terms of the stormwater plan and the relocation of the catch basin, I think part of what we heard is that our catch basin may be sufficient to accommodate the water in that area so that we're not ending up with 2 catch basins in the same area. So
Basically, we will switch that from expressly indicating relocation to removal of the catch basin from the neighboring property then.
okay, yeah, we might have to relocate the one on our property. So maybe we want to just leave it as stormwater management plan addressing catch basins
I
to
think that's
be approved by the
That's a fair
board
request.
engineer.
Everyone here knows that the scope of the testimony, that was the issue, and I'm sure the engineers will come together to address that, so yes.
I kind of wish the other people hadn't left, but I don't think we want to force the Wilsons to remove the catch basin on the other people's property. I think, we just want to, they could stop using it if they want to, but they don't have to remove it. And that could be construed the way this condition is worded.
Well, the new condition calls to address the issue of catch basins, not to compel removal or movement or anything. It's left to Mr. Clark, their engineer, and the board engineer to be the ultimate arbiter of the solution.
Chris knows what we're after.
Would you like to see any specific language included in the condition, or you know what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think I know when it's just really a matter of just the three engineers just working it out, because I think we're all talking, I believe, about putting that catch basin on the applicant's property, and I assumed by the testimony that we're gonna remove the one that was there, and I guess if that's a gray area, then we have to get that resolved.
To be discussed. It felt to me like it was trending towards a technical conversation for which maybe Mr. Steiner feels equipped to drive. I certainly don't. I want to leave it to the the professional engineers to address it. And you understanding the expectations of the residents of the city of Summit and the municipality can find a solution that satisfies everyone to the best of your ability.
Just so the board knows, I did have a conversation with the city engineer before she retired, and she did say that this was a real issue with the water coming down the driveway, icing conditions on Oxbow. So it really, everything that Mr. Clark had mentioned, that's what we had discussed.
Okay. On the question about potentially an additional condition was the discussion of the fencing. Is that is agreed to, understood? Is there any ambiguity there? That's included in this plan?
That the fences are being removed, right? The ones that are, so the plans that were submitted note that those fences that encroach onto neighboring property are going to be removed.
And that the new fences do not encroach on the property. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions about conditions? Okay, wonderful.
Can I just bring something up? The Historical Preservation Society, and maybe this is a question and I missed my opportunity, said that the pool house did not specify the style and the exterior materials. So are those going to match I'm assuming they're going to match, but just for the sake of completeness in the record, are they going to match the house?
Yes, at this point in time, the particular pool house is not yet fully designed, but the intention is to comply with the comment from the HPC and that it will match the house. So it won't be like a very modern straight line kind of pool house that doesn't look anything like the house that they're building.
Okay.
Is that something
So
we need to condition?
we can add that as a condition that the pool house be designed to be compatible, complementary to the
I like that.
house.
They said compatible, yeah.
Claire, does that work for you?
Yes, and I do know the architects are in Kelly Conway, so I'm not too concerned about that.
There you go. All right. Good stuff. All right. Four conditions or five conditions? Where are we
Total
at?
of five.
Five
Four
now.
That
with
were
the-
discussed, and now with the pool house
Okay.
being compatible with the house.
All right. Who would like to begin deliberations then? Oh, there we go.
I'm excited about this one.
Okay.
So I have to tell you, when I first saw that you were coming back for a variance for your pool, I don't always like that because I feel like, I get it, you started to do renovations on your house and realized the pool probably was old and you wanted to change it. I am in favor of this application. I realize and appreciate that you're taking very large measures to mitigate water that isn't even really, that's originating on other people's property, and waters can be a very large issue in Summit. So I am in favor of it because you're doing so much to mitigate this problem for your neighbors and the town. So I really appreciate that, and I'm in favor of it. And you have a very thoughtful and complete landscape plan as well, which I also really appreciate. And so for those reasons, I am in favor of it.
Anyone care to add to Catherine's?
Well,
Go for it.
this is fairly minor. As to the third variance for the generator, which shows up beautifully on the landscape plans, thank you. I note that to get the generator close enough to the house not to need a variance, you'd have to remove some of the plantings around the area where the generator is proposed to be located, and I think what your proposal is better than getting it closer to the house.
Good observation. Anything further from the board? Excellent. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the application.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
No, we'll give it to Diana. All right. Chris, will you give us a roll call?
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. All right. The real reason we're here. 7 resolutions for memorialization. 8? Oh, sorry. Andy's sneaking one more in.
Is that a record?
That's the most
This
I've
may
ever
be a
seen.
record, yes, so contain the excitement.
We get a blanket.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately not, I wish.
Yeah.
All right. First resolution is 22 Dunder Drive, application ZB 21-2062. Our eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Toth, and Chairman Spur. We need a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. And Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner, Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, our next resolution is 26 Locust Drive, application ZB 21-2067. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, and Chairman Spur. Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 41 Springfield Avenue, application ZB 21-2075. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, and Chairman Spur.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 25 Edgewood Road, application ZB 21-2059. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur. Need a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 101 Prospect Street, application ZB 21-2061. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur. And we need a motion for those as well.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 31 Twombly Drive, application ZB 21-2060. And eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes.
All right, next is 81 Mountain Avenue, application ZB 21-2063. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Sager, and Chairman Spur.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Sager,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
And our last resolution, finally, is 101 Springfield Avenue, application ZB 21-2058. Our eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Ms. Schwartzstein, and Chairman Spur. We need a motion for that.
So moved.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Schwartzstein,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes.
Okay, and we have two sets of minutes. The first is from July 19th, 2021. Would somebody like to move those?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. And last set of minutes is August 2nd, 2021. Need a motion for those.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And seeing none.
All right, we are adjourned until Monday, September 20th. Good evening.
Yeah.